Look at me now, darling, right in the eyes through this screen. I am about to tell you something they never wanted you to know. There is a mirror in your home that holds more power than any spell, any ritual, any ancient text locked away in forbidden libraries. I discovered this truth nearly a century ago, and they laughed at me. They called me eccentric, they called me a fool, but the ones who listened, their lives transformed overnight. Fortunes appeared, love returned, health restored. And all because of what I am about to share with you about mirrors and the most forbidden truth of abundance. You see, most people look into a mirror and see what is wrong. They see the wrinkles forming, the weight they want to lose, the tired eyes staring back. They use the mirror as a weapon against themselves, a daily reminder of everything they are not. But I learned something extraordinary, something that changes everything. The mirror is not showing you reality. The mirror is creating it. Every single time you stand before that glass, you are performing a ritual, whether you know it or not. You are speaking words into the invisible, and the universe is listening with breathless attention. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. I was standing in my apartment in New York City, barely able to pay my rent, staring at my reflection with tears streaming down my face. I had just received another rejection, another closed door. Another person telling me my ideas about metaphysics and spiritual law were nonsense. And in that moment of complete despair, something happened. I looked at my reflection, really looked, and I heard a voice, clear as crystal. It said, "You are looking at the effect, not the cause." That sentence split my world in two. I didn't understand it at first. The effect, not the cause? What did that even mean? But something in me knew it was important. I sat down on the cold bathroom floor, my mascara running, my hands shaking, and I just listened. That voice came again, gentler this time. What you see in the mirror is the result of what you've been thinking, feeling, believing. Change the cause, and the effect must follow. It sounds so simple now when I say it out loud, but in that moment, it was revolutionary, because I realized I'd been doing everything backwards. I'd been trying to fix my outside world, my bank account, my relationships, my body, without ever once looking at what was creating them. I was treating symptoms while ignoring the disease. You know that feeling when you've been pushing a door that says pull? That was my entire life. All that struggle, all that effort, and I'd been moving in completely the wrong direction. I started to pay attention, really pay attention, and what I discovered horrified me. The thoughts running through my mind on repeat were absolutely vicious. You're not good enough. You'll never have enough. People always leave you. Nothing ever works out. Over and over, like a terrible song I couldn't turn off. No wonder my life looked the way it did. I was literally thinking it into existence. Every worried thought about money was a prayer for poverty. Every anxious thought about love was an invitation for loneliness. I was a magnet, but I was magnetized to attract exactly what I feared most. Here's what nobody tells you. Your subconscious mind doesn't understand jokes, sarcasm, or what you didn't really mean. It takes orders. Every thought is a command. Every word is a decree. And I had been decreeing disaster for years. I thought about my mother, always saying, "We can't afford that, even when we could." I thought about my father, convinced that success required sacrifice and suffering. These weren't just family quirks. These were inherited patterns, spiritual genetics I'd been running on autopilot. But here's the thing that changed everything. If I had learned these patterns, I could unlearn them. If thoughts created my reality, then new thoughts could create a new reality. The recognition was both liberating and terrifying. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you understand that you've been the architect of your own limitations, you also have to accept that you're the only one who can demolish them. I started small. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly become a manifestation master. That's not how this works, despite what the quick fix gurus want you to believe. Real transformation is quiet. It's subtle. It happens in the space between your thoughts. I began watching my words like a hawk. Every time I caught myself saying, "I can't afford that," I would stop mid-sentence and rephrase. "I'm choosing not to invest in that right now." Do you feel the difference? One statement closes the door, the other acknowledges your power to choose. When bills arrived, Instead of that familiar dread in my stomach, I started saying, "Thank you for the services I've received, and I bless these companies with prosperity." At first, it felt ridiculous. I felt like I was play acting. But something shifted. The energy around money began to feel less like warfare and more like circulation. I created what I called my new money story. I wrote it down, spoke it aloud daily, treated it like medicine for a sick mindset. Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am a magnet for abundance. The universe wants me to prosper. These weren't just affirmations floating in cone space. They were declarations of a new reality I was choosing to inhabit. And then came the tests. Because the universe doesn't just hand you a new reality without making sure you're serious about it. An unexpected expense came up. My old self would have spiraled into panic, seeing it as confirmation that I was right to fear financial instability. But this time, I met it differently. I said out loud, "I trust that the money for this is already on its way to me." Within 3 days, I received an unexpected check from a forgotten freelance project. That moment changed everything for me. Not because of the money itself, but because I finally understood that my inner dialogue was either building bridges or burning them. Every time I said, "I can't afford this," I was slamming a door in the universe's face. Every time I said, "Money always finds me," I was opening a window. I started listening to myself the way you'd listen to a friend who keeps repeating the same destructive story. And honestly, I didn't like what I heard. I was constantly narrating a tragedy where I was both victim and villain. Of course, this is happening to me. I never get lucky breaks. Rich people have it easy. These weren't just thoughts, they were commands I was giving to my subconscious, and my subconscious was saying, "Your wish is my command." So I made a practice of catching myself mid-sentence. When I'd start to say, "I'm so broke," I'd stop and rephrase, "I'm in a temporary cash flow situation." When I'd think I'll never afford a house, I'd correct it to, "I'm preparing to receive my perfect home." It felt ridiculous. At first, like putting lipstick on a pig. But here's what I discovered. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a fact and a repeated statement. Tell it something enough times with feeling, and it accepts it as reality. Florence Scovel talks about the law of substitution. You can't just remove a negative thought. You have to replace it with a positive one. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you try to stop thinking about poverty without giving your mind something else to focus on, the poverty thoughts will rush back in like water filling a hole. I started creating what I called replacement phrases. Every fear-based statement got a pre-planned counterstatement. What if I run out of money? Became money flows to me from expected and unexpected sources. I can't afford this. Became I'm open to creative ways this can come to me. At first, these felt like lies, but I kept saying them anyway, and something shifted. The shift wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like watching ice melt. You don't see it happening moment by moment, but suddenly there's water where there was once something frozen solid. I began noticing opportunities I would have previously dismissed. A friend mentioned a project, and instead of thinking, "I'm not qualified," I heard myself say, "Tell me more." That conversation led to work. Not because I suddenly became more skilled, but because I stopped blocking the channel with my own resistance. Here's what nobody tells you about affirmations. They're not magic spells. They're not about forcing the universe to bend to your will. They're about removing the mental blocks you've built between yourself and what already wants to come to you. Every "I can't" is a door you've slammed shut. Every "I'm not worthy" is a wall you've built. The affirmations aren't creating something new, they're demolishing the obstacles you've constructed. I started testing this with small things. Instead of saying, "I never find parking," I'd say, "I always find the perfect parking spot." And you know what happened? I started noticing empty spaces I would have previously driven past. My awareness shifted. The parking spots were always there, I just hadn't been looking for them. Then I tried it with relationships. I had been carrying this story that people always disappointed me. It was my identity. I was the person who couldn't rely on anyone. So I started saying, "People are eager to help me. I am supported and loved." It felt absurd. But within weeks, 3 different people reached out offering help I hadn't even asked for. Had they changed? Or had I simply stopped broadcasting "stay away" with every interaction? This is where it gets radical. Your words aren't describing reality. They're creating it. Most people are walking around with their subconscious set to sabotage. They're speaking their fears into existence without even realizing it. I never have enough money. Nobody appreciates me. Good things don't happen to people like me. And then they wonder why their bank account stays empty, why they feel invisible, why opportunity bypasses them entirely. I used to do this constantly. Every complaint was a command to the universe. Every worry was a prayer for what I didn't want. I was a master manifester, just manifesting everything I dreaded instead of everything I desired. Here's what changed everything. I started treating my words like they were spells. Because they are. Every sentence you speak is setting something in motion. You're either building or demolishing, creating or destroying. There's no neutral ground here. When you say, "I can't afford it," you're not just stating a fact. You're reinforcing a pattern. You're instructing your subconscious to keep you broke. But when you shift to, "I'm increasing my capacity to receive," something different happens. You're suddenly open to solutions. Opportunities you would have missed before become visible. The word is the thing, not a description of the thing, the actual thing itself. This sounds mystical until you test it. Until you watch what happens when you stop saying, "I'm so tired," 50 times a day and start declaring, "I have all the energy I need." Your body listens to everything you tell it. Your circumstances arrange themselves around your dominant statements. Reality is far more flexible than we've been taught, and your words are the chisel. I started an experiment. For 30 days, I would only speak what I wanted to be true. Not lies, declarations. Not delusion design. If I didn't have money yet, I wouldn't say I'm rich, but I would say money flows to me easily and frequently. If a relationship was strained, I wouldn't pretend it was perfect, but I would say, this situation is resolving in perfect harmony. The first week felt ridiculous, like I was playing pretend. But by week 2, something shifted. Not just in my circumstances, in me. I walked differently, made different choices, said yes to things I would have declined. My confidence wasn't faked. It was built by the very words I kept speaking. And this is something most people get backward. They wait to feel confident before they speak confidently. They wait to feel loved before they affirm love. They wait to feel successful before they claim success. But the universe doesn't reward waiting. It rewards declaration. I started treating my words like seeds. Not all of them sprouted overnight. Some took weeks, some took months. But I learned to trust the process, to trust that every affirmation I spoke was working beneath the surface, rearranging circumstances, shifting energies, preparing the soil. There were moments of doubt, of course, moments when I looked around and saw no evidence of change. But I'd learned something crucial. The absence of visible proof is not the absence of movement. Think of it like this. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you trust it, you speak life over it, and one day, without warning, a shoot breaks through the soil. Your words are doing the same thing right now. Every affirmation, every declaration, every time you speak your desire as though it's already done, you're watering seeds you cannot yet see. I started applying this to everything. My health, my relationships, my sense of purpose. When I felt tired, I didn't say, "I'm exhausted." I said, "My body is renewing itself. I am filled with vitality." And I'd feel a shift, subtle but real, like a doorway opening inside me. When I felt lonely, I didn't say, "No one understands me." I said, "I am deeply connected to love and friendship." And slowly, authentically, people began to appear. Not because I was desperate, but because I was aligned. This is the part that surprises people. When you change your inner speech, you stop chasing. You start attracting. There's a magnetism that comes from alignment, from speaking and believing the same truth. I remember one particular week when everything felt heavy. Bills were piling up. Opportunities seemed to close. And I felt that old, familiar panic creeping in. But instead of spiraling, I spoke. Out loud. Clearly, with conviction. Every financial door is open to me. Money flows to me easily and constantly. I am provided for in ways I cannot even imagine. And I meant it. Not as a wish, but as a statement of fact. Within 3 days, an unexpected check arrived. Within a week, a project I'd forgotten about came through. Within 2 weeks, I had more than I needed. Coincidence? Maybe. But I've seen this coincidence happen too many times to dismiss it. The universe has a mathematical precision that staggers the rational mind, and yet it responds to something as intangible as feeling. Let me share something that happened to a woman in one of my classes. She'd been affirming prosperity for weeks, saying the words, doing the visualization exercises I taught, but nothing changed. One day she came to me, frustrated. "Florence, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't it working?" I asked her to speak her affirmation out loud right there. She said, "I am surrounded by infinite abundance." The words were perfect, but her voice told a different story. There was a slight tremor, a defensiveness, an apologetic quality, as if she was asking permission from an invisible authority who might say no. "Now," I said, "say it as if you're simply stating a fact, like you'd say the sky is blue or water is wet." She tried, but you could hear the effort, the forcing. She was trying to convince herself, and that trying created resistance. Here's what most people miss. Affirmations aren't about convincing yourself of something. They're about aligning with what already is in the spiritual realm. When you say, "I am prosperous," while feeling poor, you're not lying to yourself. You're recognizing a truth that exists beyond current appearances. You're calling it forth from the invisible into the visible. But that calling requires a particular quality of consciousness. Not hoping, not wishing, not even believing in the way we usually think of belief. It requires knowing, and knowing has a feeling. It's quiet, settled. There's no anxiety in it, no desperate need for proof. It's the same feeling you have when someone asks your name. You don't have to think about it or convince yourself. You simply know. This is why I always say, go to the end. Feel the wish fulfilled. Don't climb the ladder rung by rung in your imagination. Stand at the top. Experience completion. Because when you truly feel completion, something extraordinary happens in your energy field. The grasping stops. The chasing stops. And in that stop, in that stillness, the thing you desire finds its way to you. The universe is always at work, arranging circumstances, coordinating meetings, orchestrating coincidences that aren't coincidences at all. But it can only deliver to you when your hands are open. When you're clutching, when you're demanding, when you're white-knuckling your way through manifestation, you're actually blocking the very channel through which your good must come. I've watched people hold their breath waiting for love, and in that holding, they radiate desperation. Then I've watched them exhale, surrender, decide to be complete as they are, and within weeks, sometimes days, love appears. Not because they stopped wanting it, but because they stopped needing it to feel whole. This is the great paradox nobody wants to hear. You must desire without desperation. You must intend without insistence. You must know it's yours while releasing all attachment to when and how it arrives. Think of a child asking for a cookie. One child asks sweetly, then goes back to playing, trusting the answer will come. Another child whines, begs, throws a tantrum, demands it right now. Which child do you want to give the cookie to? The universe operates on the same principle. It responds to the consciousness that knows it's already provided for, not the consciousness that's frantically trying to manipulate reality. The truth is, the moment you truly release something, you prove you already have it in consciousness. Because only someone who knows they're abundant can afford to let go. Only someone who knows they're supported can stop controlling. Only someone who knows they're enough can stop chasing validation. This is why the final step feels like doing nothing when you've been taught that manifestation requires constant action. But there's a vast difference between doing nothing from laziness and doing nothing from knowing. One is empty, the other is full. One is collapse, the other is trust. So yes, you speak the word. You feel the feeling. You follow the inspired action. And then, and this is where most people stumble, you let it go. You release it into the invisible law that never fails. You stop checking the mailbox 17 times a day. You stop asking everyone if they think it's going to happen. You stop reading your bank account like it's a crystal ball. You live as though it's already done. Because in the realm where all things exist, it is. And this is where the real transformation begins. Because when you stop worrying about money, money stops running from you. It's the most paradoxical thing. The moment you release your grip, the thing you were chasing turns around and follows you home. I've seen it happen in the most ordinary ways. A woman stops complaining about her salary, starts blessing it instead, and within 3 weeks, she's offered a position she didn't even apply for. A man stops resenting his bills, starts thanking them for the services they represent, and suddenly clients appear from nowhere. A student stops panicking about tuition and affirms, "My education is divinely financed," and a scholarship materializes from an aunt she barely knew existed. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is law. This is the universe responding to your new frequency. You changed your inner station, so you're receiving different broadcasts. But here's what most people miss, and it's why they fall back into lack even after they've had a taste of abundance. They think the work is done once the money arrives. They think, "Finally, I manifested it. Now I can relax." And the moment they relax back into their old consciousness, the old conditions return. Because money isn't the demonstration, consciousness is. The money was just evidence of your shifted state. The real work, the lifetime work, is maintaining that consciousness, regardless of what the physical world is showing you. That's mastery. Anyone can feel abundant when the check arrives. The master feels abundant before the check, during the waiting, in the silence, in the supposed lack. The master knows that what appears as lack is just the old clay being dissolved before the new form takes shape. You are not trying to get money. You're remembering that you are the consciousness through which infinite substance flows. There's a difference. One is begging, the other is opening. One is desperation, the other is recognition. You're not a beggar at the feast. You're the host. You're the one who set the table. And you cannot be denied entrance to your own banquet. So when the rent is due and the account looks empty, you don't cave. You stand in your inner knowing. You say, "The money is here, even if my eyes haven't photographed it yet. It is done." And you go about your day in peace. That peace, that certainty, that unshakable knowing, that's the signal that moves mountains. Now, I know some of you are thinking, "But Florence, I've tried this. I've said the words. I've tried to feel it. And nothing happened." And here's what I want you to understand. Nothing happening is a lie. Something is always happening. The moment you shift your inner state, the entire universe shifts with you. But you're looking for proof in the wrong place. You're looking at your bank account, your mailbox, your phone. You're watching the door, waiting for the knock. And all that watching? That's doubt dressed up as vigilance. The universe doesn't reward watching. It rewards knowing. When you know something is yours, you stop checking. You stop refreshing your email every 5 minutes. You stop mentally calculating how many days it's been since you spoke your word. You just go about your life with this quiet confidence, this inner smile that says, "It's handled." That's when everything rushes toward you. I remember a woman who came to me, frantic about money. She needed $500 within a week, or she'd lose her apartment. And she was speaking her affirmations, yes, but she was speaking them like a beggar. "Please let the money come. Please, please, please." Every word dripping with fear. I stopped her and I said, "You're pushing it away. Every time you say please, you're announcing that it's not here. Stop begging. Start claiming." So she changed her words. She said, "I give thanks that the $500 that is mine by divine right now comes to me in perfect ways." And she said it once, just once, with her whole heart. And then she let it go. 3 days later, a friend called her out of the blue, said she'd been thinking about her and felt moved to send her a gift. $600, not 500, 600. Now, did that money fall from the sky? No, it came through a person. But that person was the channel. The universe used what was available. And that extra $100? That was the universe saying, "When you trust me, I give you more than you ask for." This is why I don't worry about the how anymore. That's not my job. My job is to set the intention, to feel as though it's already mine, and to move when the universe nudges me. You want to know what happened after that? The woman asked me if I'd ever considered teaching what I do. She was starting a small group, women who wanted to learn about spiritual principles, and would I come speak. That engagement led to another, and another. Within a year, I was filling rooms, not because I hustled, not because I had a strategy, because I trusted the pattern, because I understood that when you become certain inside, the outer world rearranges itself to match. That's the law, not hope. not luck. Law. Now let me show you how this works with something even bigger. Let's talk about healing. I knew a man once who was told he had 6 months to live. Doctors, specialists, the whole establishment agreed. 6 months. They gave him pamphlets about hospice care. He came to me, and I told him the same thing I'm telling you now. What the doctors see is the result of what you've been thinking and feeling for years. But that result isn't final. Consciousness can be changed. And when consciousness changes, the body follows. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But here's what I knew that he didn't. The body is not the boss. Consciousness is the boss. The body is just the servant, following orders. And if you've been giving it orders of fear, resentment, bitterness, well, the body obeys. It breaks down, it gets sick, it reflects the inner chaos. But the moment you change the inner orders, the body says, "Oh, new management, let me adjust." I taught him to stop seeing himself as a dying man. Every time that thought came, he was to say, "I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy." Not as a wish, as a fact. As a declaration of what is true in the invisible realm, which is the only realm that matters. He did it, for weeks. Every fear that came up, he spoke that word over it. Every time someone looked at him with pity, he silently declared his wholeness. 3 months later, he went back to the doctor. The disease had stopped progressing. 6 months later, it was in remission. A year later, he was completely clear. The doctors called it spontaneous remission. I call it obedience to spiritual law.